like to welcome him, introduce you, and քանի շատերը դեք պատրաստում դիմել ամերիկյան համալսարան, կարող եք մի քանի հարցեր ուղղել համալսարան։ Այդ անգլերեն։
So, you're welcome to ask me questions. Anything you want to, shall I use this?
Ani.
Anything you'd like to know about AUA? We all enjoyed the tour of the school right now. We saw the laboratories and the sports complex and the art room and everything. It was a wonderful tour. You're aware that we have an undergraduate program that's starting next year. And so if you have any questions about AUA, I'm more than happy to answer them. Yes?
Can I start? First of all, I would like to introduce myself. I'm B.Boghosian. I'm an AUA graduate. I love AUA very much, and I was very glad to learn that we have started the undergraduate program. It's great, it's amazing. And I wonder if we have any chance to have a PhD program there too in American University, because many students are really looking forward to having a PhD program there. Thank you.
Thank you for the question. We hope that we will have a PhD program a little ways down the line. We want to start the undergraduate program. We want to get it up and going and ramp it up first and make sure that it's all going smoothly. But the philosophy that we had behind it was that we couldn't start a PhD program until there was a bachelor's program in place. And one of the reasons for that is that in PhD programs, PhD students get teaching assistantships. And you have to have undergraduates there to teach first, and then we can talk about having teaching assistantships for PhD students in the future. So I view this as a first step, a little ways down the line. Give us a few years. Eventually we will get to PhD programs, I think, a few years down the line. But we felt that this was the first step. There's a reason that universities are structured this way. The programs help each other. The PhD program is helped by the fact that there are undergraduate students there. Professors can have research groups in which they have a PhD student, master's students, and then undergraduate students can work in the same research group next to them. And that way, while they're still an undergraduate, they can learn about how a research group works at a university, how it is to do research with a professor, and it all fits together very nicely. So that's the direction we're going in. Yes.
Thank you.
Good. Other questions? Anything at all? It's fine. We have 3 different majors that will be starting. One of the majors is a Bachelor of Arts in Business. One of the majors is a Bachelor of Science in Computational Sciences, which is a mixture of applied mathematics and computer science and computational modeling. And the third one is a Bachelor of Arts in English and Communications, which includes not only English and English training and English teaching, but also things like public relations in English, things like journalism in English, those kinds of topics as well, come into an English and Communications program. So we start with those kinds of things because we're an American accredited institution, accredited in the United States. You can take credits that you earn at AUA and transfer them to universities in the United States. That's possible. It also means that we're structured with things like student governance. So there's a student council, and there'll be an undergraduate student council as well. And the students are able to get together to meet, to make decisions, to have clubs, all those kinds of things that you would expect in American universities. It also means that there's faculty autonomy and self-governance also. So faculty get to decide how they want their courses to be structured. They work with their program chair and the dean, and they design the course. You may think that because I'm the president of the university, I decide what goes on. I don't. I can't, I wouldn't even if I could. Faculty do that. They're the ones that have the knowledge to do it. They're the ones that are empowered to do it. And that's a good thing. It decentralizes the education. So those are all the characteristics of the program. Yeah?
I have a question, and perhaps it's not appropriate, but I know that the students are very excited about AUA as you love, but I also think that, and I know that they know a little bit about the program, etc., but I also would love them to get the chance just to get to know you a little bit and hear about your background as a scholar, and also as someone, from the diaspora who has chosen to come back to Armenia, what it means to be the president of, AUA, what does AUA mean here, and what gets you excited and things. So I think that if that would be okay.
I can do that. Whatever you want to hear. This is. I will talk about whatever you want me to hear. If you don't stop me, though, I can talk and talk and talk. So, I'm a mathematician. My background is in mathematics. I grew up in Massachusetts, not far away from Boston, Massachusetts. I went to high school in central Massachusetts. I went to university at Massachusetts Institute of Technology, MIT, in the Boston area. And then graduate school at the University of California. I lived in California for about 8 years. Then I moved back to Boston. Every winter I wonder why I moved back to Boston. The weather in California is beautiful. And the weather in Boston is very snowy. But I started working at a startup company in Cambridge, Massachusetts. And then and the startup company made supercomputers, and they wanted to develop scientific software on supercomputers. This was back in the 1980s and early 1990s. And then I moved to academia, Boston University. In 2000, I joined Tufts University, and I was chair of the mathematics department at Tufts University before I came to AUA 2.5 years ago in 2010. How many of you have heard of Tufts University? I'm curious. Some of you. Yeah, Tufts University is just outside of Boston. It's not far from Harvard University. How many of you have heard of Harvard University? Somehow I suspected that would be the case. They're very close to one another by car. MIT is not far away either. Boston has many universities like that. So I work there. I work on mathematics, applied mathematics. My specialty is fluid dynamics, how fluids move, and why fluids are chaotic, why they become turbulent when you mix them, all things like that. So it's a mixture, like in the middle between mathematics and physics and engineering. It's right on the edge of all three of those things. And so in the late 2000s, maybe around 2007, 2008, I started visiting Armenia. Why did I visit? The first time I visited here was because the National Academy of Sciences invited me, and they were electing foreign members of the National Academy of Sciences. So they invited me to come, and at that time I started visiting AUA. I got to know people in the engineering department there. And after a few more trips, I ended up coming back as president in 2010. So, good. Other questions? Yes?
How is your profession? How do you connect your profession to your profession?
It's difficult, yeah. The question was, how do I connect my profession to being a president of AUA? It's very different. And usually people go into academics because they love doing research. They love doing, in my case, mathematics. And then after you work at it for a while, and you work at it and you publish papers, and you get a research group, and you start making discoveries and working at it, after a while, then they tap you on the shoulder and they say, we would like you to be the department chair. And then you're a department chair for a while, and then they tell you you'd like to be a dean, and then eventually you end up in this position. And the trouble is you have no time anymore to do the research that you loved and the reason that you went into academics to begin with. But that's only partially true. I'm actually publishing in secret one paper this year. Every Friday for a few hours, I make sure that I do nothing but mathematics, just to keep my brain fresh. And after a while, it builds up, and you get something done, and over the course of a year, I actually get a paper finished. I think I will keep doing that. Otherwise, after a while, if you stay away too long, then you lose. You're not following the field anymore, and you lose the research, and I don't want to do that. Good question. Other questions? Yeah?
I have a question. How many of you guys love physics, math, and engineering?
Good. I saw the robotics laboratory here. I saw one of the robots do the maze upstairs. It was great.
So this is your guy. I would be asking him lots of questions, right?
If you were applying.
Yeah, I was going to ask that. How many of you are considering applying to AUA?
We have only 17 students graduating this year.
Graduating this year, I see. Okay. Yeah. Yes, question.
Will AUA be undergraduate program like philosophy or something like other fields, not only mathematical and science?
But yeah, we're starting with the mathematics, the business, and the English and communications. Yes, of course, we want to add other bachelor's degrees as well. The trouble is, and the reason that we have to go slowly, is because these degrees are accredited in the United States by the U.S. accrediting agencies that are recognized by the United States Department of Education. It's a slow process. It's a long process. We have to write a very detailed proposal on why we're having a degree program in that subject. The proposal has to go into a lot of detail. It's got to tell all of the courses that will be required for the major, all the required courses, the elective courses, the optional courses, the ones that are required, plus the ones you get to decide, you get to pick. It's got to show the syllabus for many of the courses. It's really got to paint a picture of exactly what this degree program will be in a lot of detail. And then we have to find the right instructors and start it up. So we can do lots of things, but we can't do everything at once. So we're starting a little bit slowly. We're starting with these three. In future years, we do hope to expand it into many other subjects, which we will choose. I mean, you could ask, how did we choose the three that we chose? We talked to lots of people. We talked to people in industry in Armenia. We talked to people in government. We talked to our alumni. We talked to NGOs, all kinds of organizations, anybody that we could find, and asked them, what does the country need? We talked to the Central Bank of Armenia. What do we need for the economy of the country? Where will the jobs be? And we use that information in choosing the majors that we chose. But we will add more.
Mr. I could just plug in something.
Yes.
I am Alan Amerkanyan, director of the AUA Hakopian Center for the Environment, and Siranush Tumanyan is also working with some of the IB students. So although we don't have other options of undergraduate programs, we're starting to reach out to high schools across Yerevan to begin with, and work on environmental studies and environmental issues. And I think that is another avenue with which you can be connected to AUA as a high school student, and then hopefully later on as you can have a wider kind of education at AUA, especially from the environmental perspective. That would be something you would supplement your undergraduate education with.
Yeah, thank you, Alan. That's a very good point. And Siranush now is working on programs in ecology, ornithology for high school students. And it gives you a way to get directly involved in an AUA program. So if you're and biology soon. Okay, now that's wonderful.
Life science.
But the current courses in ecology and ornithology involve field trips, understanding the biodiversity of the country and so forth. So.
And also students work on very fun projects. For instance, some of the students Siranish has worked with, they've translated books into Armenian from English. They're preparing now, this is mostly been students from Sebastasi. Some of them are working on coloring books for small children to understand, the color significance in birds, identifying birds. So it's, they're doing really fun projects.
So we hope to do more of those things in the future as well. Other questions?
Have all of you who are applying already taken your math exams?
Yeah.
On the scale of 1 to 10, 10 being great, how was it?
Did you like the math exams? No. Yes. I see, that shouldn't happen. We do try to balance the questions across all of the tests, so we have a number of people that work on that. But if you don't think we did a good job, you can send email to the undergraduate email address on the webpage and make a suggestion. But we do try our best to choose from those problems in such a way that it balances the difficulty of the test.
And then some of the questions are selected randomly.
They're selected randomly, I think, within groups, and those groups are designed to keep the overall difficulty of the test roughly the same.
There's no personal attention to
Yes, no, yeah, so, and of course, the outcome of that test isn't sort of a hard and there's no cutoff scores or anything like that. When students apply to AUA, we look at the whole application. We don't say that there's a minimum score that you have to get or anything like that. We look at all the scores, we look at all the recommendation letters, we look at all of the background of the student, the essays, things like that, and we make a decision based on the whole thing, not just, it's not a formula. It really requires a lot of attention to each application.
Can I ask one last question?
Yes.
Since you guys are being boring. Since this is one of your first times at I, so I'm wondering what you think about I. What's your favorite thing so far?
Oh, I think it's a wonderful, so this is not my first time here. I've been here twice before this. I haven't seen the new building though. I've been to this building before, but I have not seen the new building that opened more recently. It's an absolutely beautiful school. I think that the architecture, the modernness of the surroundings, the classrooms are bright, there's lots of windows. It just contributes to an atmosphere of energy. And I don't know if you feel that, but the way that when I walk in here, I feel energetic somehow. It's a way that architecture, if you want to appreciate the work of the architect, Alan has a degree in architecture. If you want to appreciate the work of the architect, you just think of how it changes your mood to be in a building like this. But I see the energy among all the students walking in the hallways, the screens on the wall, everything. It just all fits together very nicely. Looks like a wonderful education environment. Yeah. So this energy, though, isn't translating into more questions.
So many questions.
But if you do do have questions, and if you think of questions afterwards, you can go to the web page and you can ask me questions. You can send me an email. It's easy. It's right on the web page. You can president@aua.am.
One thing, if I could also add, we could do, if there's a group of you who wants to visit AUA, we organize tours on campus.
Yes, we do.
And hopefully, we'll have events where some of you will come as groups and participate in those things.
Yeah, we'd be happy to organize a tour if a number of you would like to see AUA or even see particular parts of AUA. We'll organize a tour for you. 17 of you who applied maybe have, or who are graduating maybe have seen AUA already. If not, you're welcome to come and we'll make sure that we give you a tour. Those of you who will graduate next year, it's not too early to begin to think about these things.
And also, our library is open to everyone. It's open until 2 p.m. 2 a.m. in the morning.
At 2 a.m.
You're not around.
But
in case you need to study for an exam. And its membership is open and free to everyone. So even your family members can come to members of the AUA library.
any citizen of Armenia or Artsakh can join the library, get a library card. And if you haven't seen the library since last October, when we reopened it, you should come see just the library, because we completely redid the library. We tore out the old library, and it's all new architecture, study rooms for students, meeting rooms for students, and it's video screens, things like that.
Window seals.
I'm sorry?
The window seals.
Yes, right. So it's
the same architects that did your school did that.
that's right. Yeah, it was
Isn't
the
it
same
the
set
picture of
architects,
the library of AUA?
and they'll be doing more within AUA as well in the coming year. There'll be everything from the more mundane things like replacing elevators to hopefully in the future, not far in the future, building a new student center area in the first floor of the main building at AUA. So, yes.
Is it right that you have to be 16 years old to have a library card?
Do they have to be 16 years old to have a library card?
No, I don't think so. I think anybody can have a library card.
I did not know of any restriction. I thought anybody could have a library card. I'm not going to tell you I'm absolutely positive, but I think I am.
Visit our site, the Papazian
No, you
Library
need a
site,
passport.
guidelines.
Yeah, I think it's
You need a
possible.
passport.
You might require a parental signature or something like that.
I have one last question. This is in Korea. So if you were a young person in Armenia, so if you were there in shoes, why would you be excited about AUA or possibly your plans to take it? So if you were
Oh,
on the other side of this,
for undergraduate study at AUA. I mean, it depends on a number of things. It depends if one of those fields interests you, obviously. If your interest is to major in philosophy as an undergraduate, then you really don't want to come to AUA. If your interests do fit in with the three majors that we have now, then I do think it's a high-quality education. It's an education that passes all the requirements for American accreditation. Our students, by the way, at least at the master's level, our students who graduate go on to the best universities in the world. We have had students that have gone from AUA to Cambridge University in the UK, Stanford University in the United States. It's possible, if you do well enough at AUA, to go anywhere. And so, you know, there's another reason that you could do that. Our goal is to bring, you know, sort of, as we put it, international education in Armenia. This is the motto that you'll see on our webpage. There's also an aspect to American liberal arts education that I didn't mention, and that is that you spend your first 2 years taking what we call distribution requirements or general education courses. So even if you want to go into computational sciences, you will need to take courses in foreign languages. You will need to take courses in history and literature. You'll need to take courses in, you get to choose from many different kinds of courses. Poetry, all kinds of different experiences, anthropology, etc. And the mix of courses that we offer in general education will change from year to year, but the goal is to get you to sample different things. If somebody wants to major in business, we don't want them to just take business courses for 4 years. For example, I mentioned I come from Tufts University. At Tufts University, you spend most of your first 2 years taking, in addition to the start-out courses in that subject that you want to major in, you take many different courses as well. And what happens, we find, is that by the end of the second year, probably between 40 and 50% of students that had one major in mind when they came into the university changed their major. By the end of the second, you don't have to choose your major till the end of the second year. You apply with an intention of going into a particular field, one of those 3 majors, but you get to change your mind until the second year, the end of the second year. What we find in U.S. universities is that not most people, but many, many people do change their mind. Because they come in and for the first time in their life, they take a course in anthropology. And they say, this is pretty interesting. And then they take a second course in it, and then a third. The next thing you know, they want to major in it. So that general education that you get for the first couple of years is also, I think, a unique thing that we built into the program at AUA. Now, at the end of 2 years, if you decide that you want to major in philosophy, then if we don't have a degree in it by then, you may end up having to transfer somewhere else, but at least you get to make that decision.
If I could just add one more thing.
Yes.
One more thing.
In addition to our heavy integration into the American educational system, we're also taking very active steps to making AUA education relevant to European educational institutions. So we're working actively with European institutions to make sure our policies there's mobility between students here and there. And hopefully we'll have students from Europe coming studying at AUA, and we'll have AUA students going to European institutions and studying there.
Yeah, we're looking closely at these kinds of exchanges with European universities. Armenia is a signatory to what's called the Bologna process, which is a way of standardizing education throughout Europe. And the Bologna process and the American accreditation process are very, very similar to the extent that we're helping actually with the Ministry of Education to bring the practices that we have learned to follow for American education, to provide advice on those kinds of things so that it can be set up for the Bologna process here as well. So, and that does mean that in the future there'll be more possibilities for student exchange with both Western Europe and with the United States. And we hope to have students going back and forth as part of this. It will become easier to do that as educational standards become uniform. And that seems to be happening. Yep. Yes, if sometimes in applying to university here, one applies for military deferments. AUA does have military deferments that it can offer on a competitive basis to our male applicants. So we can offer that. Does that answer your question? Or?
Yes.
Okay, yeah. No, if you indicate in your application that you want that, you will be considered for it. Yes, you can put on your application that you want a deferment for military service as part of your application package. Now, once again, that's done competitively. We have some of these, we have a limited number of them. we give them out on a competitive basis among our applicants.
Now there aren't any special number. For example, if you are university by students, you have to
The ones who apply for it. We do have a number of these. I believe the number is 15 for all of AUA, but I'm not positive.
or each.
For the undergraduate program.
It will be for all university or each department.
For the undergraduate program, yeah. Yes?
Is there anything like exchange of students, like when you send them students to colleges, just
Yeah, not yet, but we're working on it. That's what Alan mentioned a moment ago. We're working on that both in Europe and in the U.S. In Europe, there are exchange programs already within Western Europe. They're just beginning to extend to Eastern Europe now. And we're doing our best to stay part of that process, applying for funding so that we will be able to send students to Western European universities. And likewise to the U.S. And we're uniquely poised to do that because we have English language education at AUA. So that tends to be in exchange programs like that, English tends to be the language that's used. So we can do that now. We can accept students from Western Europe to come to AUA, and then the usual thing that universities try to do with each other is, if a certain university, either in Western Europe or in the US, sends a student to AUA, that frees up a seat there so we can send one of our students there. And for both universities, it gives the students a better experience, and it doesn't cost either university any money. Both students pay local tuition and just go. So we're trying to work out programs like that and we're in discussions with a number of other universities to do that. The other thing that we may have, many universities in the U.S. have what they call junior year abroad programs. In your third year of a four-year university education, you spend it abroad somewhere. So we may be able to host students from the United States at AUA. We're working actively on that. By the time we have a junior year, by the time we have a third year, we expect to have a junior year abroad program. But we're adding one class a year, so we won't have a third year until 3 years from now. Other questions? Yes. Yes. Oh, when you're going to choose a profession, what's the most important thing that you should worry about? Different people answer this question different ways. And there are people that would argue with the answer that I'm about to give you, but I would argue back. My answer is do something that you love. Do something that you are absolutely passionate about. Do something that you wake up in the morning thinking about and go to sleep at night thinking about. Because then you'll be great. Don't do something because you think it will give you a lot of money. Don't even do something because you think all the jobs are in that area. You don't know where the jobs are going to be. If somebody told you that there would be jobs in social networking back in 1990, your answer would be, what's social networking? Nobody knew it in 1990. We don't know where the big jobs are going to be 30 years from now. Nobody knows where the jobs are going to be 10, 20, and 30 years from now. Least of all those who say they know. So don't listen to them. Do what you love. Do what you're passionate about. Do what you want to do. Okay?
Better than Better than.
Well, because you do something better. Well, oh, I see. You love one thing, but you do the other thing better. That's possible, but it usually isn't the case. There are ways that you can find
Connection.
that you can combine the thing that you love with the thing that you're good at. Suppose, for example, that you, I don't know, what's an example? You love environmental sciences, but you're really good at business. There are ways of combining business and environmental sciences to talk about green businesses, sustainable environmental businesses. There are ways to combine things. But all I'm encouraging you to do is don't compromise too much at this point in your lives. Go after what you want. You have time to go after your dreams. And if you change your mind at some point, that's okay too. You have time to make these kinds of compromises later. But right now, at this age, in your lives, I would go after what you want, what you really, really want.
If we could look at that great advice to everyone. And thank you for being with us and answering all the questions. Thank you very much.
Bingo.